There we go. Okay, now all I have to do now is just turn off this freaking music. And let's see how it's going online. If I don't turn off the music, I'll get a copyright strike. Oh, let me see. Hey, is that Zabora? Did you change your name to Comedic Witchcraft? Let me see. Check this. Pop out the chat. And, oops, keep it to there. Oops. No one needs copyright. Yeah, really. Exactly. No one needs a copyright. Actually, if with Incubus Succubus, which is the band I was playing, they have it an agreement, as to a lot of other artists too, with YouTube, that if somebody does play their music, that they just get credit for it, which is decent. So that's kind of nice, but still, anyways, I don't want to. I want to stay on Incubus's Succubus's good side, because they are a great band, and they're friends with some friends of mine. So I vicariously know them through someone else. No, that doesn't work. Anyhow. So, hey, Zabora, you changed your name to Comedic Witchcraft, huh? Cool. Yeah, I think Comedic Witchcraft maybe fits you better. I think one of the problems, like I found with having my name as my channel, was that it was very difficult for people to get an understanding of what my channel was about. So they're like looking at it going, look and sketch, what the hell does that mean? So, and Hellbound Heathen, it gives a much better understanding of kind of what my channel is about. You know, they kind of get the idea that, oh, okay, he's kind of not, you know, I don't know exactly what the hell people would get from that, but at least it gives a little better of a description than just like my magical name. Hey, what's up, Dorian? What's up, old man? And now the ageism comes. Okay, all right, you Canadian. I'm surprised you guys got internet up there in Canada. Have you guys invented locks for your doors yet? No? Haven't invented locks yet, huh? Okay. Let me see. Hello, Witchy Jim. How's it going, Witchy Jim? Good to see you again. This is my weekly Patreon hangout. I invite my Patreons, and hopefully they'll show up if they want. They have a spot. They have an invite that is sent out. Perfectly welcome to join me. What I'm going to talk about today is something that I think kind of falls in line with what we were talking about last week. But this is the importance of skepticism and magical diaries. Now, I think magical diaries is one of those things that a lot of people, including myself, are not very disciplined about. I'm going to be honest, I don't do it all the time, and I should do it all the time. But it is a good way to keep track of your magical progress, your spell work, even your rituals, your daily meditations, your tarot readings, if you happen to do them, any kind of scrying you do, any kind of divination you do, even things that you might not think are important. If you put in your magical diary, later on, if something kind of clicks or something happens, you can kind of go, oh, and you can kind of come back to that. If you if you like me, where sometimes maybe you go into a ritual or meditation or whatever, and something comes up, or maybe you spontaneously decide to do a ritual or spontaneously do something, you can jot that down. And I'm working on creating a little template that people can download from my website. I was trying to do that right before I started, and I had a problem with it. But I'm working on that. So if people want, they can get a sample and they can use that sample to use as a template. But it's pretty easy. All you need to do is you just this. Okay, so this is what I have for my magical diary. You do not need to here. You can twist it and do it and make it your own. You can include or exclude whatever you like. But basically, I have the date. So July 12th, 2017. The day, Wednesday. The time, whatever time, 6 p.m. The phase of the moon. What is the phase of the moon right now? Right now, I believe it's waning or waxing. I have no idea. I think it's waning. The weather conditions. What is it like outside right now? Is it raining? Is it sunny? Is it muggy? Is it foggy? What are the weather conditions? What are your emotions? Like, what are you feeling? Are you feeling nervous? Are you hesitant? Are you angry? Are you happy? Are you joyful? Are you just, just whatever, sober and just kind of just not really in any kind of a mood? What are your physical conditions? Is your foot hurting? Is your hand hurting? Is your whatever? Whatever physical conditions you have. Do you have a rash? Do you not have a rash? Well, you don't have to put if you don't have a rash. But I mean, certain physical conditions that might be unusual, like let's say you recently broke your arm or whatever. You can put those physical conditions in there. Or maybe you could put down physical condition like, anxious, anxiety. You can put that in because anxiety does have a physical component to it. A lot of our mental states have a physical aspect to them too. Like if you are nervous or anxious or angry, your physical condition, you can have, it'll actually physically alter your, it'll have an effect upon your physical body. And that's what I'm trying to say. The name of the ritual performed, is it a divination? Is it a scrying? Is it just a practice? Is it a combination of a couple? Is it, are you doing the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram? Are you doing a different version of it? Whatever it might be, you can put that in there. And then the reason why I have these two categories here is because sometimes when I go into circles, sometimes I just meditate. Other times I do a little bit more involved of a ritual, and then I actually do like an actual ritual. So the performance could be, let's say, an SBAT or a Sabbat. Maybe you're observing, the solstice. You're observing an equinox, or maybe you're observing Beltane or whatever, and you're doing a ritual or whatever. So a performance could be just whatever ritual you were doing, or it could be something in addition to it. Then there's a space for reading. Like if you did a tarot reading or a divination or a scrying or whatever, you can put that information in there. So like, let's say you could like, let's say you do a Celtic cross reading. And so you put down like what came up, like the King of Cups in this position and the world in this position. And, so you can put that down in there. Or if it was a scrying or a divination, you can put that information in there. Like, let's say if you use I Ching, or if you use, if you throw runes or whatever, you can put that in there. Then I have a section for notes. So you could put in there whatever, notes about whatever you think might be important about the ritual, what it was for, what the outcome was that you're hoping for, if there was any, just basic notes you can have. And then the most important part, and this is a part that I was never told to do, but I found it to be very, very useful. And that is future observations. So stuff that happens in the future. So you can go back, look at it and go, oh, wow, you know what? This I did a couple of days ago wanting this, and this happened. Put that in there. If you believe there's some correlation between what happens and what the ritual was doing, this is a note for it in there. So you can put in there like, for example, like found a place to live that matched exactly what I wanted in my ritual for, getting a new apartment or whatever. And you put that in there, or, whatever you believe as a correlation to it. And that is pretty much it. It is pretty simple. Just it doesn't have to be complex, you don't have to have a whole lot of information in there, but just some of the very basic information, so that what you can do is you can track your progress. Like maybe you notice that certain rituals take 3 days or 4 days or 1 day or a week or a month or whatever. I've never really found any patterns. Sometimes stuff just seems to happen when it happens, but you might find different correlations. You might find certain things that seem to resonate or keep popping up or whatever. So it's an important aspect of any magical practice, in my humble opinion. So let me see. Let me pay attention to the chat, see what's going on. I know you guys are probably talking amongst yourselves. Hey, Loki's Witch. Hey, welcome. Thanks you can make it. I have like 4 books. I know. After a while, it's like you start collecting books of shadows. I have like, I don't even know how many I have. I mean, I have my own personal one, but I have like so many electronic ones, but each one is at a different stage. And then I also have analysis of other books of shadows, especially the Gardnerian material. And so I know I have a lot of book of shadows too. I didn't get that far into my diary. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said at the beginning of this, I mean, I'm not that disciplined either. I should be more disciplined about it. The dream journal or dream diary is another thing that a lot of people recommend, and it is something that I don't do. I'm just going to be honest. I just don't do it. And I probably should be doing it. And, that's, sometimes we don't always do what we're supposed to be doing, but at least we strive to try and do more of it. Let me see. Hey, how's it going, Featherian? Welcome. Michelle Ganal. Hello, Michelle. Welcome. Nalia, the Wandering Wolf. Hey, Nala. Welcome. And let me see. Oh, okay, good. So I'm all caught up on it. So now one other thing which I just started to do, which is really interesting, is I started doing video diaries. And this is something that I was kind of hesitant about doing in the beginning, but I actually found it beneficial. I don't do it for every single ritual, but I started doing it for other rituals. And that is keeping a video diary of it. So what I do is I film it, and I just, I have a little lapel mic, and I just sync up the sound with the video later on. I mean, this is all private stuff. I'm not going to be releasing this on the internet, but it is just for my own observation. And then I save it to a hard drive, and I get a couple of together, and I put them on a DVD. And I also create a PDF of the magical diary page, and I put that with the video diary. So I've done a couple of them. I've done probably about 4 or 5 so far. And they're interesting to kind of go back and read, watch them and see what happens. And, I mean, it's just kind of, for me, it's just interesting. It's just kind of a new way of recording stuff. But again, it's something that's very private. I don't think I would release it, but who knows? Maybe after, when I pass, maybe somebody else will find something useful in it or whatever. And that's interesting. That's something that I've enjoyed doing. But it is good to keep a record of how your progress is going. And the other thing is that, you know, to not talk about whatever it is that you do. There's a lot of superstition around that. And I think that it is something that maybe not everybody subscribes to that theory, and that's fine. But I definitely do subscribe to that theory. I subscribe to the fact that we should stay silent. We shouldn't talk about what rituals we do and stuff like that. And I pretty much adhere to that. I've heard different kind of observation rules, like you shouldn't talk about it within 24 hours or within X amount of time, within 3 days or whatever. I just don't talk about it, period. You know, I don't find any use in talking about stuff that I've done. I have had things that have happened in the past that, you know, maybe I'll draw upon and say that, you know, use as an example, but I try to use it in kind of an obscure term and don't talk about it directly like, oh, I did a ritual for this to happen. You know, I don't like to talk about stuff like that. I don't feel it's beneficial. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I think there's actually quite a bit of ancient wisdom that people nowadays just ignore. And I think that I don't think it's in their best interest to completely ignore it. I think that there's reasons why certain information was passed and handed down to students, and I think that it should be respected and it should be understood. But again, witchcraft, Wicca, is very much an individualistic path. So if you want to say screw that and go off and do whatever the fuck you want, nobody's going to stop you. But it's been my experience for as long as I've practiced, that a lot of the wisdom that I heard from other elders back in the day rings true. And I think that we should at least give it a second look and think, why did the elders say that? Why did they make that a quote unquote suggested rule? And there's usually good reason for it. And so I continue to respect that. I have a lot of respect for elders. Because I'm becoming an elder one day. You little whippersnappers. Back in my day, we had to do rituals twice a day. Once uphill in the snow. But, you know, yeah. So that is it. There's a lot of wisdom in there. Hey, Jeremy, how's it going? Jeremy, welcome. Let me see. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the importance of skepticism. And I think that this is one of those things that it kind of is connected to keeping a ritual diary. But we need to, I mean, magic is a science, but it is also an art. So it has been considered a science and an art. I think it is more of an art than a science, because it's subjective, and art is definitely subjective, you know. And so at least I treat magic as an art, and I understand it as an art. I don't think that we right now are able to put magic under a microscope, measure it and predict it and all this other stuff. I don't know if we ever will be able to. Maybe one day they'll be able to measure it and whatever, you know, who knows? Maybe they'll be able to do that one day. But for the time being, I consider it to be an art. So along the lines of one of those things of being an understanding that magic is an art is understanding that there are certain elements that are going to happen that may not be associated with whatever it is that we are doing. So there's a fine line between interpreting what happens in ritual as a sign and understanding that what happens in a ritual is just something that happens in a ritual. It's a fine line to understand what is divination and what is just happenstance. There's a fine line between understanding a whatever, you know, whatever various thing could be happening, to be grounded enough to understand and look at it in a skeptical nature and say, okay, was that a spooky ghost who came in and knocked that candle over, or did I bump the table and the candle fell over, or the candle wasn't in a certain spot and it just fell over? Sometimes it's a fine line, but I think that it's important. One way of looking at it is seeing all the various elements in oneself as representations of our own inner being. So you can look at air as in our intelligence and our creativity. You can look at water as our emotions and our imagination. You can see fire as our passion and our desire and our will and our drive. And you can see earth as our grounding and as our stability and in keeping us firmly planted on the ground. If you let any one of these aspects of yourself dominate your personality, you become out of balance. So if you allow your airy nature to take over, then you're going to suffer from not being grounded enough, or being sort of, you're not, all the other aspects, the elements of yourself are going to be out of balance. So I think that that's an important aspect that I think that some people allow to get a little out of hand. And I think that that's an important aspect of our practice. And that is understanding that sometimes shit happens or stuff happens that we could associate with something else, but chances are it was just a coincidence. It was probably just a coincidence. And most of this is in like what people would call poltergeists, ghosts, whatever you want to believe those things are. There is a possibility that it could have been a poltergeist. There is a possibility that there's probably another explanation for it. And it is really ourselves to determine what is what. And the one good thing about this is if you are skeptical in nature about certain things, you understand your default state. When something does happen that is unusual, that is out of place, you'll immediately recognize it for what it is and understand that, okay, that was unusual. And these things, these unusual incidences should be far and few between. If you are a type of person who has experienced this on a very regular and frequent basis, chances are it's not what is happening, it's your interpretation, it is your observation. I mean, we see everything through the pinhole of our being, and we often don't see the larger picture connected to outside of this little pinhole. And it's important to perceive that and to understand that we are 100% perception. Everything around us is how we perceive it. And if you are not skeptical enough, you can fool yourself and you can trick yourself, and that's not going to do you any benefit. And the reason why I believe that it ties into the magical diary is because then what you can do is when you have your magical diary, you do something, you perform a ritual for a particular reason. Later on, when you see something that happens that that does actually not fall in line with something else or doesn't have any other explanation, you can put that in your diary and you can see it right there. I mean, I've had that happen to me many times where there are things that have happened that there's no explanation for it, and I can obviously explain it away. I can completely logically explain it away, but it's also so out of place that there's some other explanation. So that's the best way to describe it. let me see. Oops, fell asleep in my chair. Hey, Animus, how's it going? Welcome. So, yeah. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. I'm also going to, like I said, I was trying to upload that ritual template to my website. So if people want to download it, they can. And I don't know how many people know that I have a website. So let me just share that with you all. I don't have a lot of information currently on there, but if people are interested in, let me see, where is it? Let me first go to the website. There we go. And let me see if I can share that now. There it is. So this is my website, and I do have a download section right here. And in the download sections, I have, for example, I have planetary incense, planetary hour calculator, talismans, blank, 6 up new, and you can also, here's also my personal book of shadows. If you're ever interested, there's a PDF download. You can download it for free, and it goes over how I do my practice. But if you also want to read basically if you want to read the HTML version of it, it is here, and you can go through it and kind of gives little pictures for it. It's a very traditional, it's based off a traditional Wiccan practice. And it's also based on the Irish pantheon. So people are welcome to do that. A little history of the reed, a little history of Scathach, a brief history of how my theory is of how witchcraft has evolved from prehistoric shamanism. Do not know if there's an unbroken chain going all the way back to prehistoric shamanism, but I can definitely see roots in it. So that's an interesting theory. So I'm going to be having more information on my website later on. Let me see. Stop sharing that. Stop sharing that. And there's a link to my website in my description. So if anybody ever wants to go there, I'm going to be putting more information on there, and probably starting my online group again. And that's something that I wanted to do. There's a lot of things that I want to do. It's just I just don't have the time and the resources to do it all. So that's something that I struggle with. Let me see. I think I was just, let me see. I knew, but I've stalked you for like, you've been stalking me for 5 years. I think I was just there a week ago. Isn't Lilokin one of the names of Merlin? Yeah, that's one of the theories. There's also, yeah, there's a Scottish figure from mythology who was named Lilokin, and he was sort of like this crazy guy who lived out in the woods. And he was definitely one of the pagans. You know, he was one of the old pagans. And it was definitely, you could see that this mythology was written from the viewpoint of a Christian. Because Lilokin was this crazy wild man running around the woods with horns, and he was absolutely insane, and, you know, didn't bathe, and, you know, completely a barbaric figure. And then Saint Kentigern, who was the priest of the area, you know, they had a dialogue back and forth. And then Saint Kentigern ended up baptizing him and saving him, and then he dies. So it's one of those stories of, you know, Christianity comes and saves the crazy barbaric pagans from their awful, horrible ways, and then they're converted to Christianity, and their soul is saved, and everybody's happy, and, you know. But yeah, So if you ever look up Saints Kentigern and Liloken, definitely you can see that mythology in there. Yeah, really. I've talked to you since you had hat video. Oh wow, that's a long time. Yeah, I think that was my very first video. I didn't know you've been stalking me that long, Comedic. Or Zabora. Should I call you Zabora or should I call you Comedic? Let me know. Because if you don't want me to call you Zabora, I won't call you Zabora. Let me see. If you think everything is exactly what you, Jim, yes. If you think everything is a ghost and everything is a poltergeist, then yeah, you are going to, you're gonna drive yourself nuts. Wow. Talking about skepticism and ritual diaries, I started out with like 9 viewers and I dropped down to half. people don't like to be skeptical. They want to, well, whatever. That's, people can do whatever they want. Zabora sign. Okay, I'll call you Zabora then. So let me see, 6:32, and I think that's pretty much about it. I don't know what else more to say. Does anybody have any questions or any questions for me? I think I'll answer those questions. Let me see. Close all these. And let me see. I may believe in ghosts and things, but even I know most things are that. Yeah, exactly, Loki. So yeah, I mean, yeah. Even if you believe in ghosts, and you're not alone, Loki. There's quite a number of people who believe in ghosts. Yeah, I mean, if you have to be able to perceive what is actual paranormal activity and what's just regular activity, and it's important to be able to discern those two, not only for your own reputation, but also for your own judgment. I had one earlier. What are your views on handwritten versus typed BOSs? Oh, that's a good question, Zabora. I actually prefer handwritten BOSs. There's something about a handwritten BOS that, to me, it holds more of your creativity. It's more personalized. I think it's nice to have, like, all of my book of shadows, I've created them by hand or on a computer first. So I will type it up and then I will transfer it to a book of shadows. I had the very first book of shadows that I had, unfortunately, was stolen when I was mugged a long, long time ago. Oddly enough, in San Francisco in Union Square. But so I mean, they got my book of shadows, but I doubt that these kids knew anything about what they were stealing. But it was written in the Cobra Beard runes, and I had everything in there. It was a nice thick book that I had for a while, and all the pages were there was a Celtic knotwork all around the pages. There was some artwork in there, and that was the book of shadows that I had kept for a long time, and yeah, so it really hurt when I lost that. And ever since then, I haven't put so much effort into creating a replacement for it. I've started one, and then I kind of fell out of practice because, at the time I had written this, I was like in my teenage years. So I had a lot of time on my hand to work on it. There was no internet. So everything you researched was done actual research. Like, you went to a library and researched, you ordered books, you borrowed books, you bought books. And so I had a lot of time in my hands to read and to do that. So I do that. But nowadays I have mostly typed book of shadows. Like I said, I have like, I don't even know how many various forms of books of shadows on my hard drive, but it's pretty much all typed up. But if I had a choice, I would definitely choose a handwritten one. I think that it's more personalized. Let me see. Hey, welcome back, Featherdarian. I think skepticism is useful right up until you almost step on an actual stag in the wilderness. Well, yes, Animus, and I think that again is the pitfall of skepticism, is that if you if the portion of yourself that is the earthly aspect, which is the grounded and down to earth, becomes unbalanced, then yes, then what happens is you become blind to that little still voice. You become blind to that, to the voice, to insight into that artistic inspiration, into that. Yeah. So yes, you can also become too skeptical, and you can become so hard and not open to anything that it yes, it can be debilitating. So yes, being too skeptical can also be a pitfall, and I think that is one of the things that a lot of people fall prey to, and that's easy to do. Just like you can become too airy and floating off into space, believing anything, you can also become too hard and too crystalline and too bitter and too skeptical. And yes, like I said, there's a fine balance between those two. It's a you have to sort of constantly be aware of it. I think that comes down to that old axiom of know thyself. You need to know thyself. You need to keep all of the aspects of yourself in check and in balance. That is the most important thing. Let me see. Bapkaba, yeah, the main reason I know there is because seeing things that come with me. Yeah, Loki, I think that it's important for you to understand that I don't think that you blindly just run around assuming that they're ghosts. I believe that there are certain experiences and certain effects. There are certain things that have happened to you that makes you believe in it. So again, like I said, I have to understand the limitations of my skepticism. There's there is a degree of knowledge that I have, and beyond that knowledge is something that I do not know. So for me to sit there and judge somebody based upon information that I don't have would be an assumption on my part. It's like me. There's only a certain level of my knowledge, and then there are things that are outside of my knowledge that I don't have any knowledge over. So, I can't really comment on that. So I just assume, Loki, that you have experienced things that are outside of my knowledge. It doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong, and it doesn't mean that you're right and I'm wrong. It just means that that's experiences that I haven't had. Let me see. They wanted your spells. Yes, they wanted my spells. Yeah, I don't even think they wouldn't know how to read it. I have done searches, like hoping that like maybe someday somebody found it and would return it to me. We'll see if that ever happens. I doubt it. Hey, witches girl, welcome. How's it going? What kind of witchcraft does everyone like? Well, that's a very good question, witches girl. I think that the kind of witchcraft that I like is the kind that appeals to me. I happen to enjoy. I mean, I've been studying for so long that I appreciate what I started out practicing, and that's what I practice to today. That's what kind of witchcraft I like. I know that there's all kinds of various forms of witchcraft, and there's this witchcraft and that witchcraft and this and that. That's fine. But to me, it's whatever makes me feel connected to my beliefs. It's whatever appeals to me, and I think that is one of the type of witchcraft you should practice. You should practice what appeals to you. Find out who you are, find out what you believe, find out what I mean, do some soul searching first, reflect upon what you believe, what you think about the universe, what you believe of divinity, all of these things, spend some time with yourself just thinking about what you believe, and then once you find out who you are and what you believe, then you can kind of find something that fits it. So it's kind of a different approach of trying to like twist some belief to fit what you believe. Rather, you find out what you believe and then go out and try to find what fits for you. So I don't know if that helps, but that's my recommendation of finding witchcraft. Let me see. Actual techniques that come with me, so just remember not written down. Yeah, and there's some people who just that's yes. For one, I prefer to have everything memorized. I don't like to constantly have to refer to a book, so I much prefer to have all of my rituals memorized. Which is difficult, especially if you just wrote a new ritual or something to that effect, because then you have to rememorize it. But that's what I prefer to do. And the reason why I prefer to do that is because you build up an egregore for your ritual, and you're also able to not focus on the words. You don't have to think about trying to create something. You don't have to think about this. You don't have to think about that. You just sort of almost like go into a trance state and just you speak the words because you know the words. It's like tying your shoe or riding a bike. You don't have to think about it. You just do it. And then you can focus your attention on other things, like focusing your intention upon what it is that you want to happen. So yes, definitely memorization is the number one thing. But it also takes a little bit of time to memorize and then get a ritual format that you enjoy down and then memorizing it. Like I could not imagine somebody who keeps switching back, switching to this and switching to that, switching to this and practicing that. And I mean, how do you ever get anything done? it takes so long just to concentrate and focus and be able to memorize like one type of ritual format, and then here's somebody like switching back and forth. That would drive me nuts. Actually, I should say okay, so you're talking about hoodoo. Yeah, I'm too hyperactive to sit and take that time to actually write and journal. Typing, copying, pasting for a personal book is really handy. Well, that's I think that the reason, now this is just my opinion, but I think the reason why you're hyperactive is because you're hyperactive. I think if you actually sit down and if you practice sitting quietly for X amount of time every day, you're going to find that hyperactivity lessens. You're going to find that you're able to actually sit down and focus and concentrate. But that's just my opinion. I don't have any medical knowledge. I'm not a doctor, nor am I a psychologist. That's just my personal opinion, and I may be completely full of it. So as he just answers. So yeah, I'm just answering questions for right now, which is girl. I tried contacting Prince before. He don't want to be bothered. He talked about skepticism in the occult, which is girl. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I just got done talking about journaling and skepticism, and now I just thought I'd open it up for questions. I know I've been my share of ghosts from doing security at night. Okay, sure. And how journaling can help record experience. Yes. Seen and heard my share. Yes. What happened? The chat did a little bit of a hiccup there. Okay, so let's see. Animus Channel says people call stuff ghosts that are actually a variety of effects from physics, psyche, time, and intuition. The language is more superstitious than the phenomenon themselves. Yeah, and I agree with Animus. I think that there's a lot of, it's also the, I think that having that skepticism and can help us determine whether something is, for example, a ghost, an ancestor deity, or a deity, or an accident, and there's a certain portion of it that you just have to use your intuition. Like if I got up from my chair and walked into the other room and suddenly something happened, a candle fell on my altar or something that was kind of unusual, then I would take it as a sign of something or something happening, But there would be an element of skepticism where I would kind of analyze what had happened and said, well, maybe it was just kind of loose, So you have to have a little bit of skepticism. But if you have looked at it and analyzed it and you don't have any other explanation for it, chances are there's probably something more to it than just that. Let me see. Hermetic thelemic here. Yes. I believe that our ghost, because one night I felt some tap on my back. Okay, started with the pentagrams according to the Golden Dawn. Oh, okay, yeah. So the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. I have my books in English, so the people here can't read it easily, so they leave it alone. Oh, that's right, Feathered. Yes. Egyptian resonates with me. Yeah, I think Egyptian resonates with a lot of people. I like to connect with my culture. It took me a while to realize what type of witchcraft fits for me. All it took was, yeah, exactly. And I think that that's how most people find the form of witchcraft that appeals to them, is by looking into their ancestry. For example, people maybe have a Norse heritage or Irish heritage or English heritage or Spanish heritage or Italian heritage or African heritage or Spanish, whatever your culture and your heritage may be. Like you may have a different heritage but live in a different culture, and there's nothing wrong with going outside of your culture and looking into your heritage. Again, it's whatever appeals to you. So how hellbound was what it like as a teen being out as a pagan? What did your family think of it? Oh yeah, that's a very good question, Loki. So I think I told my mother first, and she was accepting of it. She was an anthropologist, so she was already very open to it. I came from a family that was pretty much secular. We didn't go to church, we didn't grow up with crosses or pictures of Jesus on the wall. We didn't even have a Bible, I don't even think. So we were pretty much non-religious. No kind of religion. There was nothing. We weren't even pagan or anything. And so it was very easy for me to start sort of thinking about, first I kind of believed in like a God. I had the concept of monotheistic deity, and I thought about it because I had heard it from other people. But then I sort of began to that sort of fell by the wayside. And this was in high school, and I very much got into, I was always kind of an outsider, and never really felt like I fit in with anybody. I mean, I had my punk friends who I hung out with, that kind of like they were the out group, so I kind of went in with the out group. But I would cut school a lot and go to the library, until 3 o'clock when I should be done with school, and then head home. And I started reading about mythology, came across Celtic mythology and Irish mythology, read about the goddess Bridget, and something clicked inside of me. And that began my search into learning about paganism, and especially Druidry. There was not very much information at the time. Witchcraft was something that I got into from a friend of mine. And then I found the ritual format of that and began to use that to celebrate and connect with the ancient Irish deities. So my family, when I told them that I was a pagan, they were pretty much accepting. Nobody treated me like an outcast. And because I grew up in the Bay Area, I grew up in Berkeley, there was already a lot of pagans. There was, people up and down the street were pagans. There was a very big pagan community. This was back in the 70s and 80s. So there were a lot of people. There's a lot of my friends who were pagans, a lot of witches that I knew who we started, I started my very first coven, the coven the website that I have. So my family was very accepting of it. They never had any problems. So that was very helpful. But I also wasn't, I wore a pentagram around my neck for as long as I can remember, but I never like threw it in people's faces. And, if it ever came up, I just said I was a pagan or a witch or whatever. And they never seemed to, I never got treated differently for it. I can't think of one instance where I told somebody I was a witch or a pagan and they just like recoiled in fear. I can't remember. I'm sure it probably has happened, but it probably was so long ago that I just forgot about it. It helped. And this is I prefer memorization too, but I've ducked up closing too. Fucked up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've been in rituals with people who were seasoned occultists and they fucked up. They said the wrong thing or they invoked the South when they were at the West or whatever. I've seen people fuck up in rituals before, and it happens. Usually you just go back and do that particular part over again and you're back on course. Usually happens with public rituals when people kind of feel a little pressured. Even a seasoned witch can get kind of tongue-tied. Let me see. I haven't had a reincarnation experience yet. Maybe. Okay. I'm 100% Dutch, except for that 5% French. Okay. I'm not sure I believe in it anymore. I think it's more up to the animal connection symbology. I used to ecology. When I wore a pentacle, my sister called me a tree hugger. A tree hugger. The place where I live hasn't been land for longer than 200 years, so there's a lot. Oh, wow, okay, that's interesting. Back in the 70s and 80s, if you weren't a heroin addict, whatever else you chose was the lesser of evils. What? Back in the 70s or 80s, if you weren't a heroin addict, whatever else you chose was the lesser of evils. I never got into heroin. I knew people who did. That's a whole nother story. But no, I never got into it. I smoked heroin once, and that was fucking horrible. Threw up all over the place, and after you throw up, you feel good, but it was a horrible experience. Never did it. I did it once. Never ever did it again. Nice. I always wondered. At Loki, want me to message Lady Ambrosia? Uh-oh. What are you two ladies planning on? Uh-oh. Looks like there's trouble a brewing. Those ladies are going to get into something. Better watch out. Hide your wife, hide your kids. Loki and Zabor are up to no good. I used to do LBRP in my head waiting for the bus. Oh yeah, exactly. That's another good thing. If you memorize a ritual, you can do it in your mind. You could, like, let's say if you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling anxious or or you feel just sort of attacked by other people or whatever, you can go into a restroom and, luckily if it's a locked restroom, just go in there by yourself and just do a quick mind ritual or a very quick one and just come back out. And, I've done that before. Yeah. So you can memorize it and do it all in your mind. Yes, you can definitely do that. And I did one time as I was opening circle, I cut my leg open with the, what? FMA. And I did one time as I was opening circle. I cut my leg open with the Afami. Ouch. Hi, lady. Yeah, that's the other thing is that, when you're when you're uh, when you're tracing a pentagram with your athame, uh, you don't. I know most people in the books say do it huge and do it wide, and speak from the very heart of it and make it. That's all well and good, but really, if you're in a group with other people, just do a small one. You don't need to make a huge pentagram. You don't need to swing your pentagram into the back of your fellow coven mates. I don't know if that's what happened to you, Loki, but that's one thing that you definitely need to remember, especially if you're working in close circles. Use heroin. Use ghost. Do talk like we all try things once, then we know never to do it. Back in a couple of minutes. Interruptions here. I call that meditation. Yeah, I don't call that meditation. I think there's different. I think people have different forms of meditation. I actually, when I meditate, I have to absolutely have no other. I don't have. I don't go through rituals in meditation. But it again. I mean, it's all different for everybody. But yeah, like I know people who they say they drive or take a shower or whatever while meditating. No, I could never drive or take a shower and meditate. um, I could visualize doing those things. I could definitely visualize something while driving, or I could visualize something while taking a shower, but I could not meditate taking the shower or driving. But I could visualize things. So I could definitely visualize a ritual. I could visualize an LBRP. I could visualize a ritual, but I could not meditate while visualizing that. Actually, let me take that back. I could visualize about while meditating, but meditation myself is like visualizations and meditations to me are two different things. That's what I meant to say. But yeah, in the 70s and 80s, there was especially the group that I ran around with, there was a lot of drug use. One of the reasons why I'm definitely for the legalization of drugs is because I knew at the time there was a lot of people who were there was a bad batch of heroin that was going around, and it affected a lot of the people who I knew. There was also people who were not using clean needles. There was a lot of people who were shooting up with like flat 7-Up, literally shooting up with flat 7-Up. And so these people were putting their lives in danger just to get high. So that's one of the reasons why I think they should legalize drugs, so that people don't have to put their lives in danger. They can tax it, and they can use the tax from the money that they collect to create recovery homes. And I think that if you actually legalize drugs, you take a lot of the stigma away from it, and a lot of people who do get addicted to them won't be addicted. Or if they do become addicted, they can feel much more free and accessible to seek out professional help. Whereas someone who I've known who have become an addict to heroin, they did not seek help because of the stigma, and they felt like they might get in trouble, and so they didn't seek help, and so they tried to kick it on their own. Let me see. After that nice cut, I did pay more to what I was doing. I was moving too fast, and it was a longer one that I had used before, but I was first. Yeah, and also my athame is dull, so yeah. So Zabora, yeah. So the thing is that yeah, you cannot, if you get an air bubble into a syringe and you shoot it, you are dead. So you cannot use any kind of a carbonated material. That's why most people, junkies, if you ever watch somebody shoot up, which I have done, it's first of all, push all the air out, make sure there's no air in there. Yeah, it's a whole process. But yeah, this person once used flat 7-Up, and yeah, they're just lucky they're alive. because apparently that was very flat 7-Up and had absolutely no carbonation in it whatsoever. But yeah, they're lucky to be alive. I was always taught once the Athame draws blood, it's no good. That's interesting. I've actually never heard that, but I think it does definitely go within the lore around an Athame that it should never be used to cut anything. Like you should never use an Athame to carve candles. You should never use an Athame to cut herbs. You should never use an Athame to cut anything. But the only exception was you could use the coven sword to cut a cake for a ritual, like let's say a hand fasting. That's what the white-handled knife is used for. The white-handled knife is used for cutting herbs or for carving candles or cutting. So yeah, so Zabora, that sounds in line with what I've heard, but I've never heard that exact thing. The one I have now is not dull, and I think if they did make thing, it could be safer too. Yeah, I think it really depends how you feel about it. Some people like to have an Athame with a sharp edge. Some people don't like to have an Athame with a sharp edge. Again, it's up to the individual, you know, whatever you prefer. You know, I myself, an Athame to me is a symbol, so it doesn't have to be sharp. You know, I'd actually prefer it to be dull. It was just that fluffy witch stuff. Anyways, so what do I know? That fluffy witch stuff. Well, like I said earlier, some of that fluffy witch stuff is actually good information. So you should, in my opinion, some of the fluffy witch stuff that I've heard back in the day is stuff that I definitely adhere to, because I respect that those elders actually knew a little more than I did. With the Athame, I think it's up to the user. I don't have a white on. I keep it sharp. Yeah, luckily I have the Athame that I have has a counterpart, which is a white-handled knife, which is identical to it. So it's a nice pair. I have a Boline. Yeah, a lot of people use a Boline too. I think the Boline just became a replacement for the white-handled knife, and so you don't have to have like a white-handled knife and a Boline and an Athame. You could if you wanted to, but you don't necessarily have to. We can always get caught up in collecting tools and toys, which is fun. So, all right, well, it's 7 p.m. now, so I think I'm going to end this. None of my Patreons showed up, but that's okay. You all were here to keep me busy. I really appreciate all your questions. So fun hanging out with you all. Really enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking with you all, especially Zabora, Loki's Witch, Jeremy, Animist. Animist always leaves very detailed, long comments on my channel. And also, of course, Feathered Therian. Not going to forget about you. And Vermilion. Who else was in here? There was a lot of people in here. There was Witchy Jim, because I think I had like altogether like about 9 or 10 people in here today. So it was a good hangout. So alrighty, y'all. Thank you so much. I will have a video coming out on Friday. So look forward to that. And I will definitely see you all and invite some of you on Saturday when I do my Saturday hangout. So, all right. Thank you all. Blessed be, and have a good night.